What's up, guys? My name is Patricia Colley. I am the human behind TarantulaHeaven.com, and you may know me thanks to my famous rose hair, Spidey, who has the Alrighty Spidey Tumblr. I also run the Tarantula Cuties Tumblr, and you may have also connected with me through my Tarantula Heaven Facebook page or Facebook group. So you may know me from a few different places, and this is my first video on my Tarantula YouTube channel, just joining in on the amazing community that's already here of tarantula keepers. So I'm excited to share tips and talk about the hobby and provide good info for people who are maybe just starting and thinking about getting a tarantula, or people who just want to expand their knowledge. So awesome. Unfortunately, you may be expecting Spidey to appear in this video. She is resting right now. This morning, we visited a daycare center, and she was very busy educating toddlers all about tarantulas. So she is resting. I try my best not to stress her out with all of her fame and popularity. So she's taking a break, but I'm sure in future videos she will be making an appearance, so stay tuned. So for my first video, I thought a really good thing to talk about was, what kind of tarantula should you get if you're thinking about getting one. There's a lot of things to think about, a lot of mistakes that I made when I first started out. Even though I had done tons of research and crawled through forums and websites, Googled the crap out of it, I still made a ton of mistakes. So I will include some things that I wish I had known. For example, where you get your tarantula is extremely important. You do not want to be going to a pet store, even though that is usually pretty affordable and convenient for most people. Usually the people that are staffed at these places don't really know what they're talking about, especially if it's for more of a furry pet store. So yeah, where you get your tarantula is really important. The next important thing you want to think about is what kind of tarantula you should get. There's a lot of different choices out there. And I think the first place you need to start is, what do you expect out of getting a tarantula? A lot of people see pictures of people holding their tarantulas and handling them and putting them on their face and all over their bodies. And I want to stress that that is extremely dangerous. You can learn to safely hold your tarantula and handle them, but definitely know coming into it that this is not a creature that loves attention and loves being handled. Tarantulas are actually the happiest when you just leave them alone. And I remember when I first got Spidey, I was bothering her all the time, and I was taking her activity. She was running around her cage like crazy for the first week because I was always trying to hold her, and I thought that that meant she wanted to be held, and I was so wrong. And I had done tons of research on tarantula care before I got her and took her on, but I didn't come across anything that said that. So I made a big mistake, and I'm passing that on to you as a lesson learned, that Spidey and most other tarantulas, I want to say all tarantulas, are so much happier if you look but don't touch. Some tarantulas are pretty tame. They can handle it. They can handle more handling than others. But for the most part, anytime you handle your tarantula, you're taking a risk that something might go wrong. They might get defensive. They might, bite you or flick hairs or something else that they do when they're feeling scared. So just be aware that this isn't an animal that loves attention as much as like cats and dogs. So if you're just looking for a cool pet that you can, admire from afar, that's great. And honestly, like, most tarantulas just sit still all day. So that's something that I also learned. But other than that, like, tarantulas are freaking awesome. They're so much fun to have. I've enjoyed every second of it. And the community's awesome. So just be aware that, think about what your expectations for this pet are, and make sure that that actually is going to be realistic for you. Another thing is that the species that you get definitely matters. There are more docile types. I'm going to name a few. The pink toes are great. Mexican red knees. Curly hairs are also pretty good for beginners. These are mostly good for beginners because of their docile attitudes. At least they have the reputation of that. I will say Chilean rose hairs are usually recommended. For that, Spidey is actually a Chilean rose hair. But that's kind of a debated thing because they tend to have random fasting periods. A lot of times they're not as docile as their reputation says that they are. So people are kind of like iffy about saying that they're beginners. But my own experience is that Spidey is very, very docile. She's very shy, very sweet. So I would recommend them. But I'm not going to lie, she has totally stressed me out with her fasting. She fasts like 80% of her life. And yeah, she just goes through these weird periods of not eating or just sitting still in one spot for like 2 weeks. So, you know, there's always like room for spiders to just do weird stuff. And that can be very stressful for beginners. So if you were going through that right now with your first spider, just know that that's usually normal. Another thing is that you want to also think about whether you're going to get a ground-dwelling tarantula, which is called a terrestrial, or a tree-dwelling tarantula, which is called an arboreal. So basically, ground-dwelling tarantulas are usually thought of as more suited for beginners just because they're usually slower. Their care is a little bit easier as far as their cage setup, and they tend to just be a little bit more easier to manage. But if you're looking for a more display type spider, I think tree-dwelling tarantulas are really beautiful to look at, and they tend to be a bit more active in their web making and just general activity. They also tend to be faster, so just know that you're taking a little bit of a risk before you do that. Another interesting thing that you may not think about at first is that you want to kind of know the difference between males and females tarantulas. Usually males will maybe only live about 3 to 5 years. Basically, once they reach sexual maturity, they have some time to mate with a female and then they're done. Females, on the other hand, can live up to a few decades. So just be aware of that when you're looking. Obviously, females tend to be more expensive and rare just because of their high demand for breeding and their longer lifespans. So that's a good thing to know when you're first starting out. But that's not to say that male spiders aren't awesome too. Like, you should still get a tarantula. Don't let it discourage you. And so that's what I would say about that. There are a few other things that you could think about, but I think that, I want to keep this video short and just wanted to give a few quick tips. If you are interested in learning more about tarantulas and like a few more things that you need to look into before you get it, I do have a guide that I'm offering. It is called the Ultimate Guide to Tarantulas, and I'm going to put the link down below. And I hope that you enjoyed this video and found it informative. And if you have any other suggestions of topics that you want covered or tips to how I can make this channel better, since I'm just starting out and getting used to talking on camera, I would love to hear your feedback, and hopefully I will be able to incorporate Spidey in at some point without putting too much pressure on the little celebrity. But thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you